yeah, my mic is showing that it's on. Yeah, I figured that was probably turn it up. We'll have I guess. All right, well, I may as well just transition over to, this screen. We're having a little bit of difficulty. Tony's just trying to figure out, getting his camera, and apparently he can't hear me. I can hear him, so on this screen you guys should be able to hear him as well. But I hope it works. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I was doing some research on Tony, and I don't know how to say his last name. I'm going to have to ask him when he comes on. But he's got quite the resume, man. Yeah, dude, doing good. How about yourself? Just having a little chat with an author. An indie. His books look cool, man. I don't know if you ever checked his stuff out. When he agreed to come on the stream, I went and looked at some of his books. Cool covers, and there he is. Alrighty, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Tony?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I can't hear you.
Yeah, the chat can hear me.
I'm not sure what's wrong. And I don't know what... Can you see me?
I can't see you, no.
Okay. Man, I can't figure out what's wrong. Normally this isn't a problem. Do you have any suggestions?
I don't know, because no, if you can't hear me, the chat can hear me. So I don't know what's going on.
I can't hear you, so I don't know what you're suggesting. Let me see if there's anything I could do here to adjust. I'll try different webcams. Oh wait, there I am.
Oh, see ya.
Okay, now I just have to hear you.
Can check.
Hold on. Say something.
Hello? No?
Hold on. Okay. I put on. Let me try a different one. There you are.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, perfect.
Sorry about that. I don't know what was wrong. All right, we're good.
Sweet. I love your setup. That blue is it's very popping.
Right? That's what I said. I said to the painter, he's like, "You want the walls painted with this?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Nice. When you agreed to come on the stream, I went and looked at I looked at your book list, and your covers are also very popping, so kind of matches.
Thank you. That's my cover artist, Vig. He's very good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the chat can hear us both, so we're good to go.
All right.
Perfect.
Hi, chat. Hello, everyone.
Alrighty, so I looked up I'm just going to read your about author off of Amazon, if that's all right.
Okay.
Could you tell me how to pronounce your last name? I don't want to mess it up.
DiGerolamo.
DiGerolamo. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tony DiGerolamo is a New Jersey screenwriter, novelist, comic book writer, game designer, and comedian. He is best known for his work on The Simpsons and Bart Simpson comic books. He has also been a joke writer for Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, a script writer for Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and a blogger for Comedy Central's Indecision website. You can see his current comics at the Webcomic Factory and Super Frat, and his videos at YouTube and BitChute. That's a great resume.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the stream.
And of course, now I do the Pineys.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of got a little, I went and checked, the 1776 one that you said that to my ex, and then I went and looked at your book one. So it seems, the only thing I've read that's kind of similar in that vein is the Monster Hunter International series. I don't know if you've read any of those.
No.
Is it kind of like that? Oh, okay. Basically, it's a secret company hunts monsters. is the premise.
Mine is kind of like, I describe it as Ghostbusters with drunken hillbillies.
Nice.
And all the characters are related, so they're all like cousins, and so that provides like an extra element to it. A lot of people compare it to Supernatural because I think there were a lot of relative characters in that show as well.
Yeah. Have you not watched Supernatural?
No,
Yeah.
no, I kind of unplugged from TV about, I guess it was about 8 years ago, and I kind of never missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just so like this family, like the mom dies, like from a demon kills her, and then the dad turns into like he's a marine, and he turns into a monster hunter, starts trying to find the thing that killed her, and then he raises his little sons up to be hunters as well. So it's basically the premise of the show.
That does sound cool.
Yeah. But yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about? I saw that it was like the Jersey Devil, like the real life folklore. Like in your story, it's actually real, and it was like I'm not familiar with who the lady is, like the witch that like brought forth all these devils, and then the family turned out to be hunters.
Okay, so the folklore of the Jersey Devil is as follows, and there are many different variations on this story. It's goes back to the 1730s. In the 1730s, there was a woman named Leeds, Mother Leeds, they call her, and she was the 13th child in her family, and she had 13 children, and the last child was born the Jersey Devil, a horrible monster that ate the family, flew out the chimney, and has been haunting the Pine Barrens ever since. And that's the real folk tale. And so in the Pineys, Mother Leeds is a witch, and that's one of the variations on the folk tale. And she opens the portals of hell back in the 1730s and releases hundreds of devils into the Jersey Pine Barrens, which is 1 million square acres. And so in the neighboring village of Abe's Hat, New Jersey, the villagers form a secret hunting society to hunt down the devils and send them back to hell. And their ancestors continue the hunt to this day. So that's why everybody in the book series is related, and that's why I flash back sometimes 50, 100 years or 200 years to other characters, other ancestors of the Pineys. Mm-hmm. And we see some of their ancestors at the Revolutionary War, because they've already have their hunting lodge already set up by the time the revolution rolls around.
Yeah, they've had plenty of time to get established. Yeah, that sounds so. Are you like super, I don't know, well versed in the? You from New Jersey? I'm guessing from some of the comments I've seen. Is this like, are you really well versed in this folklore?
Yeah, I do talks around South Jersey on the Jersey Devil. So I go to libraries and senior places, and sometimes I do it at wineries or breweries, pretty much any place that'll have me, historical societies. I do like a whole 1 hour talk on the Jersey Devil and its lore. So I take that lore and work it into the stories, and it segues with a lot of history too. So for instance, one of the stories is that Napoleon III, who was the brother of Napoleon, the older brother, he moved to Bordentown, New Jersey in the early 1800s, and he had a big estate. And they say he shot a cannonball through the chest of the Jersey Devil. So in book 7, I touch upon that story and sort of do my own version of it, why he shot a cannonball through the chest of the Jersey Devil.
Nice. And you, yeah, that sounds really, sounds awesome. But you've written, is it a comic, a Jersey Devil comic?
Yes. Back in the 90s, I did a comic book series called Jersey Devil. And he was sort of an anti-hero. And so sometimes he would tell a story, or sometimes he would hear a story, or sometimes he'd be in the story. And so part of the premise, and again, it ties in with South Jersey lore, was he lives in the woods and he could see the spirits of anyone who died in the Pine Barrens, because the Lenni Lenape Indians who lived in the Pine Barrens thought the Pine Barrens were cursed because they couldn't grow any crops there. It's geologically unique. It's very sandy. So if you can imagine just gray sand and pine trees growing out of it, that's the way the Pine Barrens is.
That sounds cool.
For many years, yeah, it's weird because for many years when I went camping in the Pine Barrens, and then when I went out of state, I would be like confused because there'd be grass or other like weird dirt, and I'd be like, "Where's the sand?" And people would say, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, when you go camping, it's pine trees and sand. Like, where's all the sand?"
Yeah.
And they didn't know what I was talking about. But so they couldn't really grow anything, so they considered the land cursed. It was sort of an unofficial reservation of the Lenni Lenape, like in the 1700s. They kind of got pushed out all the farming area and down into the Pine Barrens. And eventually they all moved out west with some of the other tribes. There's still a few Lenapes here, but not a lot. So they considered the land cursed. So based on that, for the comic, the idea was anybody who dies in the Pine Barrens is cursed to wander it as a ghost for all eternity. And the main character could see the ghost, and that was part of his deal. He could see ghosts of the dead, and it was kind of one of those dreary comics,
Yeah.
90s, super intense, because I wanted to do like my super important comic, and so everything was really dark and sort of intense. And I did stories that I'm now sort of segueing back to in the Pineys. So I did a 2-issue series about in the Jersey Devil comic. Issues 5 and 6 are about real highway bandits who lived in South Jersey during the Revolutionary War. They were known as Joe and the Refugees, and they actually went into towns during the war. They would hold people hostage, and they would rob people, and Joe would dance with the ladies. So he was like this dandy pirate guy.
Yeah.
And he never hurt anybody. But after the war, the men came back and they hung all the bandits. So he got hung. And of course, the Jersey Devil meets their ghost, and he has to do one last favor for Joe. But recently I brought Joe back in the Pineys 16 and 17. So he makes an appearance in both of those. So
Nice.
they're like a comic book universe, but it only takes place in South Jersey.
Nice. Is the Jersey Devil in like most of your books, your Pineys series, or is that just like kind of sometimes it's a recurring thing, sometimes it's completely different, like it's the, as you said, the refugees?
Well, it's the Jersey Devil legend kind of like hangs over all the folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the Piney series, the idea is there's so many different versions of the legend. That's why I made Mother Leeds release hundreds of devils into the Pine Barrens, because then the idea is each individual one is like one of these sightings.
Yeah.
And so I actually do one of the Jersey Devil stories in book 13. There's a place in Mount Holly, and they actually have a mount in Mount Holly. And Mount Holly was founded in 1677. And they built this stone altar on top of the mount called the Holy, Holy, Holy. And it says Holy, Holy, Holy on the front. And they say the Jersey Devil's trapped inside. And then there's also this well up there. It's called the Witch's Well, because the legend is they sacrificed witches on the altar and threw them down the well.
Nice.
So that's the premise for book 13 is a group of witches decide to free the Jersey Devil from the altar. And so they have to go back and sort of recreate the conditions that Mother Leeds created back in the 1700s. And the Pineys are trying to piece it together and chase them down before they do it.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I've heard of I didn't realize they were called the Pine Barrens, but like that part of New Jersey, like the forest, like it's like the X-Files episode with the Jersey Devil, or it's just like a naked family living in the woods. But
right. Yeah, they've done like all kinds of versions of the Jersey Devil on TV. They did one on What We Do in the Shadows, where they kill the Jersey Devil.
Oh, at the hunting cabin.
Yeah.
I remember that.
They've done a video game. The New Adventures of Johnny Quest did an episode. I think the new Real Ghostbusters did an episode, I want to say. So there's been a few things over the years. It's they'll touch upon it. Fallout, I think Fallout 76 has a Jersey Devil section.
Really? Where does that say? Is that Virginia? Is it? I'm not. Is it close to Virginia? Is Pennsylvania and Virginia close together? I know they're on the same side.
No, it's we're above Virginia. like the other side of the Delaware River for us is Delaware,
Mm-hmm.
and then Virginia's below that. It's like Delaware, Maryland, Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, I played. You said a video game. I remember. There's a specific PS1 game I played called Jersey Devil that I really liked as a kid. I don't know.
The little imp guy, right?
Yeah, he's like blue. I think he was blue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's purple, something like that. But that was a fun game. Good little platformer.
Yeah, I don't think it's based on a legend, but it is sort of based on. There's like two different versions of the Jersey Devil. One's the big monstrous one, and one's kind of like this on my T-shirt. He's more like an imp guy. He's like a little guy. Here he's got a sandwich. He's sitting on top of a diner.
Nice.
This is the weird New Jersey Devil shirt. It's a magazine about weird things in New Jersey.
Nice. That sounds. Is it a pretty big tourist spot, the Pine Barrens, and like people looking to try and like sight, like Bigfoot hunting, or Bigfoot hunting? They try and go sight the devil.
They either go hunting for the Jersey Devil, or they sometimes go hunting Bigfoot. There's a Bigfoot hunting society. I don't think they call it that. They call it something else, but they're always looking for cryptids. And in South Jersey, the Bigfoot here is called the Red Eye, which is an allusion to, when you shine a flashlight like at your dog or your cat and their eyes are like different.
Yeah.
When the light hits it, they say that's what Bigfoot has, and that's why they call him the Red Eye. So they're always looking for cryptids and taking, there's always pictures and stuff. They're kind of like ghost chasers.
Yeah.
And I made fun of ghost chasers in book 12. It's a book called The Pineys and the Ghost Chasers from Ong's Hat. And ghost chasers, if you've ever met them, we have a ton of ghost chasers in South Jersey because we have so many ghosts and crazy things. And the Pine Barrens are very mysterious and full of ghosts as well. So, and I've met a lot of them, and they're nice people. They're all hobbyists, though.
Yeah.
And so they always have all these electronic devices, but they never really know how to work them too well. So I asked them, like, have you seen a ghost? Do you have any recordings? And they're like, oh, yeah, if you take, this, we recorded this sound, and then we put it through this filter, and then we put it through this other filter, and then we used infrared technology. And then, you can hear a guy maybe saying, I am dead, or something like that. And I'm just like, I don't think the ghost intended for you to hear this message if you had to do all that.
You got one message to get to the living, and your message is to state the obvious.
Right. And then, like, a lot of times they'll have these gadgets and they won't really know how they work, but they'll give these big shows where they'll bring out all their electronic equipment. They kind of don't know how all of it works.
Yeah.
And then they're just they're literally doing Ghostbusters, where it's just like they're kind of making up the science as they go along, where they go into haunted houses and they'll set up various things and say, well, let's see if this works. And I'm just like, okay, maybe if there were ghosts, they would just write down on a piece of paper, like, hey, I'm a ghost, help me, or whatever. But so I kind of make fun of them in book 12 because it ties into Ong's Hat. And Ong's Hat is like the Bermuda Triangle of the Pine Barrens. And they say interdimensional portals open up in and around Ong's Hat. Mm-hmm. And that's why weird stuff happens there. So there's a bunch of ghost chasers show up to the Pineys town, and it gets a little out of hand. And I don't want to give the story away, but basically a lot of them don't know how to work their own equipment, and the Pineys keep having to tell them to get out of the way because they don't know what they're doing.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I feel like I saw an episode of X-Men Evolution where there was like Bigfoot hunters and they came across Beast. It was pretty good.
Right.
But yeah.
Nice.
So the Pineys, like what's their deal? Are they just like regular humans and they have cool weapons and they just know their stuff about monsters?
Yeah, like the term the Pineys was coined in the 1920s by Philadelphia elites who ran the newspaper industry, and they looked down upon the people of South Jersey because we were mostly farmers, and they called us all sorts of rude names. They called us rubes and hillbillies, and then they came up with the term Pineys, and it was like saying, oh, you're like some inbred backward hillbilly that married his cousin and plays in a jug band. And so initially it was a derogatory term, but these days it's a term of endearment. People in in the Pine Barrens embrace that term, and they say, "Hey, piney power, piney pride." They have bumper stickers and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, if you ask people, "Are you a piney?" they'll say, "Well, I'm not a piney. I just moved here not too long ago. But there's this bar down the road. Those people are pineys. They're piney." And because my dad, who's he grew up in Hamilton, the Hamilton area, which is pretty much in the Pines. It's like right on the edge. I said I was going to this bar to give a talk about the Jersey Devil, and he's like, "Oh, that place is full of pineys." I'm like, "Dad, you've lived here all your life. I mean, you're kind of a piney, right?" He's like, "I'm not a piney. Those people in the bar, they're pineys."
That's funny.
So it's this weird sort of running gag, but it is basically anybody who lives in the Pine Barrens is considered a piney.
Gotcha. That's funny. I like that little bit of local lore there. Let's see. Got a couple questions in the chat. Hammertron Action Figures asks, does the Piney family, do they have a crest or a symbol?
Not really. They're all hunters. So like over the years, their hunting lodge became the central nexus for all the family, and the last name of the family is Galloway, after Galloway Township, which is down right in the area of the Pine Barrens. So they don't really have a symbol. They just have the hunting lodge, and they're very much like the hunters, like the deer hunters. You'll see them with like orange vests and hats and flannel shirts and, rifles and guns and stuff like that. They have a lot of, they tell everybody they hunt deer. So they have a bunch of deer heads, but, there's one bit actually it's in book 12 where a new character comes into town and asks them, what point buck did you get? Like, because that's like a deer hunting question, like how many points on your buck? And none of the pineys can't answer the question, or they answer it wrong or weird because they don't really hunt deer. They hunt devil.
Yeah.
And so they're just making up answers, and they're like, "Oh, that's a little weird. That seems like too many points on your buck there. I don't know how you could have done that."
Got a 40-point buck. Real real dandy.
Yeah, exactly. But their hunting lodge was established in 1732, so they have this like massive barn that's their hunting lodge, and so it's kind of the symbol, in literature of their entire deal, because the hunting lodge has been there forever, and they have a secret room in the back behind a fireplace where they mount the devil heads that they've killed, because the idea is to kill the devil. It's not really alive. You have to tear out its heart, because in literature, heart is very important, and that opens up a portal of hell, and then the body gets sucked back into hell. But before the body leaves, you want to cut off the head, so the body goes back, and when it reconstitutes in hell, it has no head and it can't find its way back. So they take the head and they mount it on a plaque and put it in the secret back room and tell you which hunter killed it.
Nice. Is that like part of like established lore, like just like in the real world, or is that something you made up as a twist?
It's sort of like the logical extension of sort of a hunting lodge kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
Because the hunting lodges down here will have tons of deer heads, so it's sort of like a play on that,
I like that. That's cool. Because there's plenty of like D&D and stuff where you kill the demon, it goes to hell, it comes back to life. But I like that twist where you keep the head here, so it's just like a headless chicken. I like that. Another question.
Yeah, and I wanted it to be brutal. I wanted it to be overly brutal, like so other people who like come into town and stuff see this and go, "Oh my God, what are you people doing?" kind of thing.
Yeah. Are the books, are they pretty graphic, violent? I mean, there's devils and stuff, so I'm assuming that's not violent.
No, it's not super graphic. I tell people who are worried about the horror aspect, it's like scary, like Ghostbusters scary. It's more funny than it is scary.
Okay.
Once in a while it'll get a little dark, but I try not to get too graphic. I try to make it sort of for everyone. I don't want to say it has no edge to it, but like, I don't want to get into people's, guts falling out and genital mutilation or any crazy stuff like that. But, I try to keep it like a good balance.
Yeah. Let's see here. Burn Enough. He says, do you ever start a project in one format, but later realize it would have worked better in another? I guess he means like a novel versus like a comic.
That's an interesting question. Um, well, I've worked on screenplays, comic books, and novels primarily. And I started in screenplays. And then when I went to comics, the biggest challenge was this: screenplays are driven by dialogue, and you don't have a lot of description. But comic books, you have to describe every panel. So it was a real adjustment going from there to there. I had always done short stories and stuff when I was a kid, but then I got into screenplays. Then I moved into comic books, and then I got back into prose doing the Pineys. And it was yet again another adjustment. But what I found was I could incorporate the advantages you have in a screenplay, in that I don't like a lot of description in my books. I don't need 2 pages of description of a guy's shirt. I just want to get to what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And I find that it reads a lot quicker that way. So I'm a dialogue guy at heart, and I've taken some of that screenplay skills and some of the comic skills and brought it to the books to give it kind of a different flavor. Because a lot of people come to my table at events and they'll see the covers of my books and they'll go, are these comic books? And you'll see that they're numbered, right? It's book 1, 2, 3, etc. So that's sort of the comic booky aspect I've sort of brought into the books to kind of give it, a slightly different flavor, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is hard to make those adjustments. I think there are certain projects that are good for TV, and there are other projects that are good for movies, right? That's the way I divide it up. The TV stuff generally is good for comics and serialized fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, a group of characters and then different stories. Whereas the movie is sort of the big story. That's like a one-shot novel or a graphic novel, one-shot graphic novel, or a movie where it goes from beginning to end, and then that's pretty much it. You've told the story. And that's really where you got to drill down as a writer, I think, and figure out, is this the story? Because sometimes, for instance, Batman, if he captures the guy who killed his parents, the story's over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just, that's it. End it. Because there's no point in going on with more stories about the Joker or whatever. So you kind of got to gauge it that way, I think.
Yeah. Also, that's probably another reason why he doesn't actually just kill the Joker, because then it would be you can't catch him again.
Well, I would argue now Batman is just so long in the tooth. I mean, DC's totally effed up in my view.
Yeah.
And the comic industry is completely on fire, and people are just keep splashing gasoline everywhere.
Yeah.
The only place to go is Kickstarter, comics, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you were going to make the DC and Marvel universe great again, what I would do, besides coming in there and firing everybody and starting over, is I would hit a hard reset on the universe. And then I would say there's a 2-year moratorium on old villains. Do not use any of the old villains for the next 2 years. I want nothing but new villains for the next 2 years. First appearance, first appearance, first appearance. Because if you look at the old price guides of comics, you'll see the old comics are just first appearance, first appearance, first appearance, first appearance. There were new characters everywhere, and that's what made it more dynamic. So I would just say, don't give me any of the old rogues gallery for Batman. Just give me new villains.
Yeah.
I don't even care if they're ripoffs of the old villains. Just make them new. Give me new names, new dynamics over and over again. And then maybe after 2 years, I'll let you bring back one guy just to see how he goes. Oh, my God, all these new guys are here. Because that's what comics needs. It needs new blood. And you can't keep making things like, well, Batman gets married and Spider-Man has a kid and all that stuff. All that stuff you got to completely ignore, because that implies the passage of time. And in 20 years, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
because now you got this kid, you have Franklin Richards. What do you do with him? I mean, he grows up and then it's like, well, how the frig old is Reed Richards then? This guy's got to be like 80. So you got to drop all that stuff. You got to keep the main characters static, just like the Simpsons are static in the comic. And then you got to move forward. You could do that with the villains all day long. Have villains die and drop dead or get old or whatever, because people forget about them and you could bring them back, whatever.
Yeah.
But the main character's got to stay static simply because this is a big IP you want to have here 20 years from now. But now they're all going into the public domain, and now, the corporate guys, I think, are trying to recreate them so they'll own something. But I don't think they understand what they have. Even if Superman goes into the public domain, you could still do Superman at DC Comics and make tons of money.
Yeah.
Because where do people go to get Superman? They go to DC Comics, unless, of course, you're doing something woke and modern that nobody wants. And they're all terrible stories about his future son and whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear any of that. They want, Superman carrying an American flag, doing cool stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think the corporate guys are into that right now. They will be, though. The wheel's turning. And you watch, they're going to go right back into it. They're going to say, oh, my God, look how American Superman is again. They'll be carrying an American flag. I mean, you see Governor Newsom, he's having a friggin' podcast trying to woo the MAGA guys. It's insane.
Now, with Walls, is that what you're talking about? Or just, he started a whole new podcast?
Yeah, it's crazy. So you watch DC and Marvel, they'll be doing all that eventually. They haven't gotten there yet. Corporate hasn't figured it out and said, we're losing money here. But the moment corporate figures that out, they're going to do what I would do. Fire everybody and start over with a bunch of new people who will just do America, America, America. And then you'll be so sick of seeing the American flag, you'll be like, oh my God.
Yeah. That, I've always wondered about that as far as the corporate, are they true believers in the message, or they just think that's the way the winds were blowing, so they went that way? But if that's the case, why haven't they got the message that it's not working and start course correcting? It confuses me, to say the least. I don't know why they keep hammering down.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I think it's mostly money. There's this thing called ESG. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, they're basically screw the customers, just get the money from the investors instead.
Right. And they're saving so many millions on these low interest venture capital loans. So when they make a movie, they don't spend $200 million. They borrow the $200 million. They make the movie and then they pay back the loan. And they got so many financial things in place that works better for them. So when the ESG stuff came along, BlackRock, my understanding is, this is just my understanding, BlackRock could offer them much lower interest for those loans. And so they said, ooh, what do we have to do to get these loans? Well, we have this thing called the ESG. Do that, and you have these low interest loans. And so the corporate guys said, well, that'll make us money, not realizing what they were signing on to, I think, in a lot of cases. Yeah. And now they've signed on to it. They get this low interest loans, but their end product doesn't make them as much money. So now they're in this trap. We're getting these low interest loans, but now our movies don't work. Yeah. So what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Eventually, I think it'll all collapse. I mean, the people at Disney seem determined to destroy the company, I think, but I think that's partially the investors and a bunch of other factors. DC and some of the other competitors might actually be coming out of it. It's kind of hard to tell, but man, they're slow to move. And you just watch. But hey, the upshot is this is all opportunities for creators out there like myself and everybody. We should be seizing upon this and giving people what they want, and screw these corporate guys. Let them fall to pieces until they finally realize, and then hopefully they'll be coming to us with bags of money.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Is that kind of why you're independent? Are there any publishers you do want to work with, or do you just love being independent?
Well, I do love being independent, but I would have worked for any of these guys. I tried to. I mean, I got some work. I mean, you heard my resume. I got work once in a while, but ultimately, the woke the wokies moved in and guys like me were screwed. And I'm a comedy guy too. And comedy is a young man's game. So it gets harder and harder the older you get. But yeah, I would have worked for Marvel or DC. I tried for years. I had a friend who was a big time editor at one of the big two, and I almost got in, but even before everything went woke, it was very hard to get in because there was still this bubble that a lot of these big time comic book publishers, video game people live in, where they're so insular in their own world that they kind of want. It's like if you went to a restaurant and every day you got a ham sandwich, and for a while it's the greatest ham sandwich in the world, and you love ham sandwiches. But after a while, you get tired of it, and then you start asking, well, maybe put pickles on the ham sandwich. And then after a while, that's not good enough. And then you put pickles and, I don't know, salami. And then eventually you start to get weird. Like, why don't you put spaghetti sauce on it and dip it in chocolate and deep fry it for 10 minutes? Let me see what that tastes like. And that's kind of where they are in their brains because they're so, I think, isolated from the customer.
Yeah.
And so they get to this attitude like, well, you know, I've come up with this very different thing. Yeah, it's very different from you because every day you hear 100 different ideas for, you know, Superman stories or whatever. But the average person isn't getting that. You know, the average person kind of tunes into their, you know, stuff and then tunes out and then goes back to their lives. So they don't have that sophisticated palette, if you want to call it that, of the average, say, editor at any of these big corporate giants. They just want something fun.
Yeah.
You know, want something entertaining. And they've really gotten away from that because the corporate entities have just gotten so large and the people within them just keep hiring their friends and their relatives. And I think it's just gotten so insular. They don't know what's good anymore.
Yeah.
And so thusly the independent world has developed and developed. And then finally, like, okay, now they'll eventually go shopping for a guy on the outside when, like, okay, you're making $10 million. Okay, we'll buy you out and you can make your stuff here or whatever, and you could retire and we'll take it and run with it for a few years and then we'll ruin it and make 100. But so, I mean, that's kind of the way it is. You know, as an artist, you're always like, I don't want you to ruin my stuff, man. But then, you know, you got to eat. So there's always that balance. But then you hear about more recently, like Peter David. I don't know if you heard about him. Peter David, great guy, did you know, the Hulk and a bunch of different stuff over the years. But unfortunately, he's getting killed with medical bills. His health is not great, and he's had to do GoFundMe's to raise money to keep his family out of poverty, basically. You know, and for years he was like a bigwig in comics, and he had some TV things, but he got killed in the divorce, and a few other things happened to him. So he's in rough shape. So if you could find his GoFundMe, everybody, if you're a big fan of Peter David, help him out. But yeah, it can go wrong. But like, you know, Peter David had a few creator-owned projects on the side, which you always have to do. Even if you're in that, and that was smart, but unfortunately none of his creator-owned stuff really took off as far as I know. So
yeah, I'm not familiar with the guy, but that sounds like a crap situation.
Do you know, did you ever read The Hulk?
No, I didn't start reading comics until I got a little bit older, like a lot older, like almost 30. I started reading, and at that point I started with DC because I always like I watched like the Justice League on like Toonami and stuff growing up. I was a huge fan of Justice League Unlimited. So I got like the New 52 is kind of where I got into comics. I'm not a connoisseur of comics, so I don't know if those are considered good or bad. I enjoyed them for what they were. But yeah, I didn't read much past New 52.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. David did some Star Trek novels. Like he did a Next Generation Star Trek novel, but it was the Mirror Mirror universe. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the evil Next Generation characters.
Yeah, I've never been a Star Trek guy, and like I see so many people talking about it lately. I'm like, I kind of want to pick up Star Trek and start watching it.
Go OG. Original Star Trek is the best because Gene Roddenberry recruited from all the sci-fi guys. So all the major sci-fi guys wrote an episode, and he rewrote it, but a lot of it is very good, and the rest of it is meh. It's there. Maybe Deep Space Nine. I like Deep Space Nine, but the original Star Trek can't be beat, really.
Yeah. I always thought, like, you see like William Shatner, he talks funny, like, oh, that guy's silly goose or whatever. But then I saw, I think it was Critical Drinker posted a clip of like a conversation between Spock and oh my gosh, what's William Shatner's character?
Kirk.
Yeah. And it was like it was really great. I was like, man, I gotta check that show out. That was good acting.
No, he was great in that show.
Yeah. Hammertron asks, where was Jersey Devil published? I'm assuming he's talking about the comic.
I published it myself under my banner, South Jersey Rebellion Publishing, which was named after the South Jersey separatist movement. Back in the 70s, they wanted to split the state into North and South Jersey, but it didn't happen. And so I self-published it. So you could find copies on eBay is the easiest place.
Oh, okay.
I still have a few copies of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, and 12, but I'm out of everything else.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think the last indie author that I saw that got picked up was, I don't remember his name, the guy that wrote Dungeon Crawler Carl. I think he was indie, and then I think he's on a publisher now, if I'm not mistaken. So I haven't read any of those or listened to any of those, but
the deal though is, publishers don't have much to offer anymore because of the internet.
Yeah.
And I've been with publishers, and some of them tried, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But typically, every author, they go with a publisher, and what do they complain about? Oh, my publisher never advertises me.
Yeah.
And they don't do enough promotion. They don't do enough push for the book. And, and I totally sympathize with that. And I usually, I went with a few publishers, and I always ended up doing all the promotion myself. I mean, It was ridiculous. So that's one of the major reasons I just do it myself. I don't have to cut the money with anybody. That's a big factor. I had a book that was $14. I was making $1.40 a book. That's like not great.
That's a shortcut.
Yeah. And now I'm doing the Pineys. The books sell for $9, and I get them for about $3 each with shipping from Amazon. So I can do it all myself. My only problem is getting the word out. And one of the reasons I do South Jersey stuff is because I realized that I couldn't cover the country. I would try to cover the country with my comics, and it just is an impossible task for one person.
Yeah.
But South Jersey is my region. Everything here is about an hour away. I can drive places, and I can go to places and do talks, and so I can cover South Jersey. And it's been about, I started the Pineys in 2018. So now it's 7 years later. And now when I go to shows, people know me. They say, oh, it's the Pineys guy. Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw you at such and such show and this show or that show. So that's probably the way to go. People like regional content a lot. It especially if you use local locations and things that people know, it gives them a connection to say, oh, okay, this is about me. Because, if I identify with the character and he lives in a similar area, well, yeah, I'm all on board.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty solid, a solid strategy versus, like tossing your net out in the ocean or tossing it into a pond. You probably catch more fish in the pond, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's true. Yeah. And look, I went out to LA to try to sell my screenplays and stuff. But what I realized about LA was everybody out there, well, there's a lot of things. I could go on and on about how much I hate LA, but the people out there are looking, in the business, they're looking for something. They're looking for you to be something so they can use it for their movies and TV shows and whatever. So if you're just a guy with another comic or book or whatever, there's a million guys like that. But if you're the king of South Jersey, well, then you're something, because nobody out there is running around doing stuff about South Jersey. And if you find a producer who also is from the same region, you're probably right in business right there. Especially if you find a celebrity. Bruce Willis is from South Jersey, and I always lament how it's so sad, his condition, and now he's basically retired. Although his family seems to be taking care of him, so that's good. But I always thought, oh man, how cool would it have been for Bruce Willis to just appear in the Pineys, even in just a cameo, because he was a South Jersey guy.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of connection that people look for, and I think if you're going to do this, do it well, and you could do it well if you do it small.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's pretty sound advice. Burn Enough says he started his own comic book project, and it's military sci-fi, so he hopes to release that in a few months. That's cool, man.
Cool.
So you do cons. You just do cons in Jersey, it sounds like, is your strategy?
No, yeah. I used to do them all over the place. I did games and I did comics. I would go to Dragon Con and drive 13 hours to Atlanta and do that for 4 days, and it was great, but it was very tiring, very expensive. The hotels will kill you.
Yeah. And
I realized after years of doing it, I just was blowing all my money at hotels and restaurants. So you can't, as a writer, as an artist, you could make good money. Like I had a friend who was an artist for many years. He drew Batman for a while. He's gone now, but back in the day, he could do a show and make 10 grand because he would sell artwork all day.
Yeah.
So you can make it work as an artist. As a writer, it's really hard unless you're selling thousands of units, like literally thousands, because you got to figure, a hotel, even back in the day, it'll run you like $300 for the 3-day weekend, plus food. God forbid you got to do a plane ride. I mean, you could be in it for $1,000. And that's really hard to make. I only did all the comic book conventions I did. I only came in the black twice. Oof. Once in Chicago, and we sold everything. And once in Pittsburgh, again, where I sold everything. And I was lucky because a comic book store came in both times and bought everything I had.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But that's really rare. And I've done hundreds of comic book cons.
Yeah.
So it's better just to drive to a place that you don't have to get a hotel, do the con, make your money and go home and, pack your lunch, and then you'll only make $50, $100, but you can put it in your pocket and that's profit.
Yeah.
So now that's what I do with the books. Now the books have a higher price point, so I make more money with the books, but, and I go to places that comic book guys don't normally go. So I can go to Jersey Devil Con. There's a Jersey Devil Con every year.
Nice.
I can go to South Jersey's various markets. I just set up at markets. I'm all this crap. And I can. Beachwood. Yeah, one of my annual events now is Gator Weekend at One More Bar and Grill on 206 in Chemung, New Jersey. So One More Bar and Grill has a giant mural of the Jersey Devil right near their front door and a big table there. And they let me set up every year outside when they have Gator Weekend, where they serve gator meat of various kinds.
Yeah.
And I usually do really well. I sell like a ton of books there because it's the heart of the Pine Barrens and Jersey Devil country. And so this time I sold about 100 books. So that was a pretty good weekend.
Nice. Yeah. As an independent, do you do most of your sales, like obviously do conventions, but like Amazon, do you sell directly to bookstores?
Yes, you can. I have to get them from Amazon and then sell them to the bookstores.
Oh, okay.
At some sort of discount. Some bookstores can get them from Amazon. I don't really know the deal. I know libraries can. There's like another special deal the libraries can get them. I'm in a few libraries because I've done talks there, and they'll order my book if they can. Sometimes they'll buy it. The libraries have different rules. I mean, literally every library has a different set of rules. It's crazy down here. I don't know what it's like the rest of the country, but I've been to libraries that are like 200 years old, and they have some crazy like thing where it's like, all right, in order to get your book in our library, you have to fill out this form, and then you do this and do that. And I was just like, oh my God. And then another library will just be like, oh yeah, here's $9. Give me one of your books. So it's all this crazy bureaucracy at libraries, but they're very nice. The librarians always treat me very nice. Sometimes they have snacks, and sometimes they do a poster for me, and it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
The historical societies are the same way. They're usually run by librarians, and they'll have. One time I went to an event in Greenwich, New Jersey, and they had a cake with the Jersey Devil on it. So that was kind of cool.
That sounds fun. I gotta come visit Jersey. That sounds like a. Is it close to the coast, the Pine Barrens, or where is it in the state?
So, if you know what New Jersey looks like, right? It's got kind of like a diagonal square at the top, and then one at the bottom, kind of. Just generally speaking. So the south half of the state, like the north half of the state, is like the Sopranos. It's all urban. It's got way too many people.
I mean, I watched a lot of Jersey Shore back in the day, so.
Right. So South Jersey is, as the further you go south, the more rural it gets. So, right, you get into the middle of the state, it gets very suburban, and then you keep going south, and it gets more and more woods. Although these days they keep building on it, but that's another story. But the Pine Barrens is 1 million square acres. It's at the middle of the bottom portion of the state. And then we've got like a little tail, and that's Cape May. It's kind of like our Florida. And all along the coast is the Jersey Shore, where the Jersey Shore was shot. But that was mostly the northern part of the coast.
Yeah.
But the Pine Barrens do technically touch the coast in different places as you go further south. Actually, Leeds Point, where the Jersey Devil was born, is kind of one of those places. Leeds Point is literally right on the coast.
Yeah.
And it's very swampy. It's not like a straight up beach there. The beaches in South Jersey are in Ocean City, New Jersey, Wildwood, in that area. And we have like this strip of an island that goes along the coast. So you actually leave the mainland, cross a bridge, and then hit this strip. And there's 2 giant strips like that. And you got Atlantic City and Ocean City and Wildwood down the shore. By the way, Atlantic City is in the DC Guide to the Universe, when they published where all their fictional cities were. And I tell this in my talk. Gotham City is supposed to be the sister city of Atlantic City.
Nice.
So Gotham City is supposed to be in South Jersey, just so you know.
Nice. I've never been to Atlantic City. I've been to a few spots on the East Coast. I've been to Virginia a bunch because I was in the Navy as air crew, so we'd fly from San Diego to like Oceana or Norfolk all the time. Lots of runs that way. But yeah, Pennsylvania. I don't know if I've had a chance to go through Pennsylvania. I don't think so. I don't know why I said Pennsylvania. I was watching a different show. Sorry, New Jersey. Got Pennsylvania in the head.
Yeah, no. Atlantic City is. It's kind of like Las Vegas with a beach, but not like the Las Vegas part of it isn't great. So, like in Las Vegas, you could play like nickel craps all day long because there's so many casinos in Las Vegas and in Nevada in general. Atlantic City, the rules are kind of different. There's not a lot of gambling. There's not that many casinos, so it's not that cheap. And then everything outside the casino area is kind of sketchy and dangerous. Yeah. So it really is Gotham City.
Yeah. I say the only like experience I have or like knowledge of Atlantic City is like watching shows that have a cast in New York, like How I Met Your Mother or Friends or whatever. Then they take a trip down to Atlantic City. But,
right.
Hammertron says Batman versus Jersey Devil. That could be. Has there ever been an first appearance of Jersey Devil, Batman? I don't know.
Not yet. I'm waiting for the Batman to go into public domain so I could do that. I don't think I have much longer to wait. I think they're right on the cusp. And in fact, Mark Millar is doing his own version of Superman because Superman's going into the public domain first. And he's already started his run on Superman now because he's going to be ready to publish it the moment it's a public domain.
Nice. And is it straight up just gonna be like called Superman? I mean, it's public domain, so you can call it Superman. So is that what it's gonna be called?
Yeah,
now?
I guess so. I guess Superman or Mark Millar's Superman.
That's cool. I know. It's cool that all these things are going into public domain that like I've grown up obviously longer than I've grown up with it, but I've grown up with them being part of these companies like Mickey Mouse. I'm like super obsessed. I keep seeing this trailer on X for this video game, and it's like a first person shooter, but like in the old like Steamboat Willie like black and white art style. It looks amazing. Like the guns, like bend, you get all floppy when you shoot them. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I want to check that game out. But
is that Cuphead?
No, but that's a good game. That was an Xbox exclusive on Xbox One. I think it's on multiple platforms now, but that was like a full hand-drawn video game. That one was in color, though.
Oh, okay.
I think this one's actually like Mickey, because Mickey Mouse is in public domain, so I think it actually is like you play Mickey Mouse. I think. Don't quote me on that. But
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's like Tommy guns and like old pump shotguns and stuff. Old school feel. But yeah, I think I'm getting about out of time. I got 3 kids in the house. My wife's probably pulling her hair out, so probably got to head off soon. But I really appreciate coming on. This was an awesome conversation.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Anytime. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the beginning.
No worries. I know I just upgraded, so I didn't know how it was going to work because I'm streaming now to YouTube and X. And when I went on X, it said it was like my book club stream. I'm like, that's not what I sent, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, anyway. Thank you so much for coming on, and you have a great night.
Thank you for having me, and everybody check out The Pineys on Amazon. Book 17, 76 Piney, now available. And you could check out more at thepineys.com. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Have a good night.
You too.